The subject is explainability, and we'll begin with this thought experiment from the famous computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton. Suppose you had cancer and you had to choose between a black box AI surgeon that cannot explain how it works, but has a 90% cure rate, and a human surgeon with an 80% cure rate. The idea being here that the human, at least to some extent, can explain to you why he or she is doing what he or she is doing, what the plan is for the operation, what the justification is for the operation, what the expected outcome will be, and what kinds of possible outcomes exist. Whereas by contrast, the AI tool is given simply endpoint to reach, and it reaches that or it doesn't. Now, of course, the endpoint is shared by the human and the AI. That is a successful surgery of some kind, a cancer removal surgery. There is, of course, a human benefit, a kind of psychological benefit to understanding why and how it is a doctor is going to operate on your medical condition. But there's also a very strong psychological and human benefit to having a better chance for success, to living. Life is worth something. Right? So this can be a difficult question. Now, in my experience, given this particular dilemma, most people will choose the AI. They, for given a 10% chance of living, 1 out of 10 extra, or a 1 out of 10 chance of dying, people are willing to forego the human explanation. They're willing to forego having a doctor explain to them exactly what they plan to do and why, in exchange, getting the promise of a better likelihood of a positive outcome. But you can press this same dilemma just by closing the percentages. If at 90 versus 80 you take the machine, what about 90 versus 85? What about 90 versus 89? How much? 1 out of 100? That's a sliver of difference. But the question is, how much are you willing to give up in terms of probability of living in order to have an explanation about what is happening to you and why? And especially for something as personal and significant, it's a literally life and death question, as a cancer operation. Now, in my experience, more or less there are two groups of people. There's the one group of people who say they don't care what the difference is. If there's any difference at all between the AI and the AI performs better, then they will take the AI. So for them, the explanation is worth literally almost nothing. But there is usually there's always a second group too, who struggle to find some justification for their human sense, that yes, they want an explanation for what the doctor will do and why, what the doctor's plans are for this procedure. And yes, they are willing to give up at least some little bit of a chance of living or dying for this explanation. So we always begin these sessions by talking about the human experience of the principle at hand. And I think that the human experience of explainability is very well captured by this particular thought experiment. The question is, explainability, the idea that the computer can explain to you why it is doing what it is doing, means something, at least in some cases like this one, where what the computer is doing matters very personally and enters literally intimately into our biological existence. Now, of course, it's true on the other side that for things like a Netflix movie recommendation or a Spotify song recommendation, in that case, many people say, I really don't care. I don't care how the machine comes up with the recommendation it does. I just want a good recommendation. So there are many cases, it's worth noting, where explainability in AI, understanding how and why the machine does what it does, explainability just doesn't matter. No one cares. All we care about is getting the right outcome, the best output possible. And if the machine can do that better than a human, then we take the machine regardless. But as I say, just like we have to recognize that there are many cases where explainability does not matter, there are also these cases where it does matter, at least to many people. And that will be the subject of this session. Now, another way of talking about why explainability is important, or sort of capturing the experience of explainability, is the crazy and bizarre way that machines tend to make mistakes. So here in this case, looking at this picture, this is the result of a prompt fed into ChatGPT, then fed into its image model, DALL-E, and the result was the picture you see. Now the prompt was depict the concept of explainability in AI with an image. Okay, that's a simple and direct prompt. And in fact, the picture is not bad, right? You have the robot, which is the AI. You have the people looking at the board and learning something, maybe, not sure what, but there's something there that seems to explain vaguely something. It is not a completely out of range image that captures the sense of explainability. But one of the things that is curious is this, what, at least for human beings, I think would be the simplest part of the whole image, the easiest thing to render, the most direct part of the construction is the title, explainability. Almost any human being, no matter how bad our depiction of what explainability is, almost any human being would at least spell it right in the title. Right? So it's strange that the machine, on the one hand, does so well, and it did this image almost instantly, so well, so quickly. It produces an image which more or less captures what the prompt asked for. It's an admirable job, except for the one part, which is the easiest part. It misspells the title. This kind of thing captures the mistakes that machines tend to make. And this explains to a certain extent why, going back to the cancer surgery, why at least some people are very hesitant about having an AI tool work on them if the AI tool can't explain exactly what it is going to do. What they are afraid of is that the AI tool will do majestic, virtuoso work on everything until the end, let's say, and then it will make an absurd and ridiculous error. after after completely finishing and suturing the incision, it will then cut off the patient's arm for no reason, right? or worse, right? Um, so something like that captures, I think, another side of the human value, or what humans find valuable in explainability. When we look at the kinds of errors that artificial intelligence makes, these errors just don't make sense to us. They're the kinds of mistakes that no human being would ever make. And so there's a kind of sense of confusion about confusion. It's not just confusion, but we're confused about how the machine can be confused. So explainability addresses that disorientation that humans feel. Explainability addresses that sense of this disconcert, this disharmony of the AI tool, which again can be summarized simply as it does so well at so many hard things and then fumbles ridiculously on the easiest thing.